Here this morning for our yearly gathering with our veterans. It's something we've been doing here for as long as I can remember. I remember Mr. DeRosa, who's here with us today as a veteran, used to do it, and the torch just keeps getting passed down. So again, welcome. Today we gather in honor and tribute to the brave men and women who have selflessly served our country, defending our freedoms and safeguarding our way of life. Veterans Day is a day of reflection, gratitude, and respect, where we recognize the sacrifices of duty and honor that define the character of our veterans. The concept of sacrifice is at the heart of the service rendered by our veterans, and they have sacrificed time away from their families, faced challenges, and in some cases even risked their lives. Their dedication and unwavering commitment to the values and principles of our nation are nothing short of inspiring. We owe them a debt of gratitude that can never truly be repaid. Duty is another fundamental principle that our veterans uphold with unwavering dedication. They have shouldered the responsibility of protecting our country and its citizens, often in the face of great danger. Their sense of duty is a shining example of the highest form of service to one's nation and to other people. Honor is a value that our veterans have upheld throughout their service. They have shown us that the path to honor lies in doing what is right, even when it is difficult, and in upholding the principles of truth and justice. Their integrity and commitment to the ethical conduct serves as a beacon for all of us. Selflessness is a quality that our veterans embody every day. Their willingness to put their personal interests and comfort aside for the greater good is a testament to their selfless nature. Their service reminds us that we are stronger when we work together, and that a selfless act of service can change the world. So at this point is what we usually do is I'm going to have the veterans introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about themselves, where they grew up maybe, where they went to school, when they served, what they did when they were in the service, what branch they were in. And after that, students will have an opportunity to ask them questions. So if we could start right here at the end with Mike. And Mike, I'll give you a microphone.
Good morning, everybody awake? My name's Mike Anthony. My family's been here since 1935 in the town of Millbury. My mother grew up on Massasoit Road. She was the oldest, 12 children. She had 5 brothers serve in World War II, and one was in during the Korean era. One of her brothers was killed. He was shot down over the Marshall Islands. So I come from a military family. I did 18 years in the Marine Corps, combined active and reserve. I took 11-year break and I went in the National Guard, and I was over there. I did a tour in transportation. We ran convoys over there. So that's about all I got to say right now. All right, thank you. And I'm going to say one other thing.
All right.
Past and present, being active with the veterans in Millbury, it's nice, this whole town, nobody tags none of these veterans monuments. And I want to thank all of you. It isn't like Worcester. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Terry Burke Dawson. I'm going to stand up because I'm a little smaller than Mike. Yeah, I know. I was in 33 years in the military reserve. I spent my whole life was here in Millbury. I went to all the school system, graduated from this high school. But when I remember one day in class, just before the buses were coming to take everybody home, an announcement came over the intercom, and it said, all boys that have not turned 18 yet or are ready to turn 18, go down to the post office and sign up for the draft. And what that meant was that they were going to have a lottery, and if your number was called, you were going to war. And so it just happened like that. And so many of my friends here in Millbury and outside of Millbury were getting sent off to training to go to Vietnam. And I remember we had a president called John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and I don't know if you're aware of, he was a man with flaws, but he was also a man with vision, and he said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. In other words, each one of you has a gift. you may not know what it is right now, but each one of you has a gift that can bring good to the world, that can do good for other people, that you'll become aware of. Now, I found mine when I joined the military. I went into the Army National Guard, and I was trained as a field medic and an operating room technician. At that point in time, women were not allowed to carry weapons. I was in the last class of the Women's Army Corps. And so we couldn't carry weapons, but I was good in science, and so I said, I'm going to get into medical. And so I became a field medic, and a field medic doesn't carry a rifle, but if somebody goes down, you're there to help them and help them get better and stuff. But so I was there, and I did not go to Vietnam. They ended the war before I got out of training. And then I switched over to the Air Force Reserve, and then I went into the Navy Reserve. And the Navy Reserve attached me to the Marine Corps. So I was in the Marine Corps for a while, and then I ended up in the last part of my service. I went back to the Air Force Reserve, and I changed. I changed to air transportation, and I was stationed at Bagram Air Force Base, and at that point in time, I did have to take and carry a rifle. I only shot it one time at the firing range, but I did have a rifle, and one time we were waiting for Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan. Was surrounded by bad guys, and even though we were there with the Australians and the South Koreans and the English, Polish, there was a lot of different countries there. We had built a school, and the kids weren't allowed to go to school. Because the bad guys were out there, and they would refuse to allow the kids to go to school. So we heard a lot of explosions one day, and I was in charge of these kids just getting out of high school, and I'm training them how to do things. And they came in scared to death, running, where can we go, where can we? I said, wait. That explosion's over there, and that noise over there, we can't do anything about. That's somebody else's job. We've got a job right here to get our people on the plane and off the ground. They've got someplace to go. Now, you can sit there and cry and flap your arms up and down, but you've got to make a choice. Either cry or get your job done so that we can get these people out of here so they can do their job. So choices like that are going to come for you. And I hope that when the choice comes between a marginal one and a good one, that you choose the good one, and that you're worth something. Your life can be worth something to our country. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ron Stacy. I was the crew chief on the B-52 bomber. I was in the Air Force, and yeah, I was allowed to carry a rifle though. And I have to tell you a little history about something. This school, when it first opened, I was the first freshman class in this school. We had to take our books. You know where they're building a new fireplace, the firehouse down there across from the town hall? That's where the old school used to be. And we had to take our books, carry them, and walk all the way from there with our books to this school. And I know today you guys would probably have to take a bus because they wouldn't allow you to walk that far. But you know the old saying that when I went to school, I had to walk the 10 feet of snow to get to school. Your parents tell you, well, we had to do that too. But and another thing, yesterday we were at the Shaw School, and at that time I was on a school committee. And I'm one of the ones that voted to have that school built. And but other than that, you guys are lucky guys. You got a nice school. You got good teachers. And you got open, but keep an open mind. But just one thing I have to say, though, is see that flag? A lot of people lost their lives for that. They gave up a lot for that. We don't look at that as a flag. We look at that as the country. We look at that as respect. And when people respect that, they are saying derogative things about those who thought everything, they gave up. They're dead now. They gave up their lives for it. They gave up their arms for it. They gave up their legs for it. And people had never did really anything for this country per se, and think they have the nerve to disrespect. They're not respecting that flag. they're disrespecting the people that gave everything to that flag. And they don't know how much it hurts people like us to see that. When someone does that, that breaks our heart. They have the right to do it, but they don't realize what a derogative thing that is. And thank you.
Morning. My name's Mike Netarosik. I grew up in Douglas and Uxbridge. Graduated from Uxbridge High School in 1966. Joined the service to stay out of Vietnam, believe it or not. I joined the Navy, and the first place they sent me was Vietnam. But I was a boilerman aboard a destroyer for 4 years, from 1968 to 1972, traveled all around the world. I enjoyed my time in service. It's amazing to see what people in other countries live like. It helped me gain a respect for what we have here. I don't know what else to tell you, but you really have a wonderful country to live in. You probably don't realize it, but, you know, it really is a good country.
And you have it because of us.
Right. And the veterans are part of that reason you have this such a great country. So that's about all I have to say.
Oh, this is quite a crowd we have here today. Glad you guys showed up here. My name is Ernie Bishop. I was a crew chief on jet fighters and loved every minute of it. Went to several schools. And with the Air Force, they really pushed the books on you. They were giving you tests every day and drilling every day. I don't know how many miles I marched, but that was during basic training. I grew up in Auburn, as a matter of fact. Played football for them, and Millbury was always a good team to play against. So I spent 4 years in the Air Force, regular Air Force, and then I spent 9 years in the reserves. Other than that, if you have any questions, be my guest.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Brian Presley. I graduated from Framingham High School in 2000, joined the National Guard in that same year. Did one tour in Iraq from 2004 to 2005. My job was chemical operations, but they didn't really know what to do with us at the time because National Guard was not really it was new for the National Guard to be sent to war in that capacity, so we ended up just doing force protection, so I just climbed in a tower and stared at the dark for 12 hours a night. But yeah, that's what I did, and that's pretty much all I have to say. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brandon Shank. I'm originally from Southern Connecticut. Moved up to the area about 5 years ago. Went into the Army, active duty Army right after high school. So I got to see pre-9/11 and the post-9/11 era in the military, which changed drastically. Total, I spent about 6 years in the Army between airborne infantry and special operations. Got to go to both parties in Iraq and Afghanistan numerous times over, so that's been my fun.
Good morning. My name's Roger Collette, and I've lived in Millbury for 48 years now. And when I was 17, the draft was out. That meant I would be called. So I decided to go see the Navy recruiter, and they gave me a 90-day pass. You have 90 days before you go to boot camp. And in that 90 days, I got a letter from Uncle Sam about the Army, and I brought it to the Navy recruiter, and they said, we'll take care of that. You're in the Navy. Another month and a half, you're coming with us. So I went to Great Lakes for my training in Chicago, and I had orders when I left the base for go to Vietnam on the USS Intrepid. It's an aircraft carrier. 3 football fields long, 3,500 crew on that ship. I went to 1 year, 8 months, and 14 days of sea duty out of 2 years. I went to Vietnam. We had sea trials first, and then we went to Vietnam. And it takes forever for a ship that size to get to Vietnam. It takes like 2 months, 2.5 months, 3 months, depending on how many stops you gotta go get fuel. And it was 10 months of constant, all day, all night combat, because half the ship sleeps and the other half stays awake to do the job, to fly the planes and the pilots. And after 30 days, they would come to shore. We have a week off and back out again for another 30 days. And we did that for 10 months. And the best news I got when I was in Vietnam is when the captain piped up on the whole ship, the Intrepid just left the waters of Vietnam. We're on our way home. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Roger DeRosier, and I was born in Millbury, and I'm still a resident of Millbury, a lifelong resident. I was a senior in college, and during that time I won the lottery on December 1st, 1969. But it was not the kind of lottery, okay, that you are most accustomed to. It was the lottery that basically determined whether or not you would be eligible for the draft for that year. It was expected that the first 165 birthdays that were drawn would be drafted. Well, my number was number 91. So that meant that I knew that I would be drafted after I graduated from college. So during the rest of the year, not really wanting to get drafted, I just went around to the different branches of the service to figure out, okay, which branch of service I would want to join in order to avoid the draft. So instead of serving for 2 years in a draft, I was willing to go for 4 years of enlistment, hoping to avoid going to Vietnam. I chose to go into the U.S. Air Force. So after graduating, instead of going into my field and profession that I wanted to do, which was to teach, I ended up going into the Air Force. In basic training, after the first week there, because of my college degree, I was informed that I would indeed be going to Vietnam. Because President Nixon had started a program called Vietnamization. And Vietnamization meant that we were going to teach the Vietnamese military English so that they could take on the war. So that my job now was going to go to Vietnam and teach the Vietnamese military English. So that became my job. So shortly thereafter I left, went to Vietnam, and taught Vietnamese English for the remainder of a year. It turned out to be a great year, not what most would have expected. I can talk about that later if you wish. Bottom line is I served my 4 years, got out, searched for a job, was able to get a job here at Millbury High School and taught for 32 years and retired. So that's my story.
Morning. My name is Stuart Mulhane. I'm a lifelong resident of Millbury. I graduated from this building from high school in 1962. From there, I did take other courses for my business, but in 1968, I won the lottery that Roger was talking about, so I just volunteered to be drafted. I was drafted into the Army, and I spent my basic training in Fort Gordon, Georgia, and my combat infantry training in Fort Polk, Louisiana. From there, my orders were Vietnam. So it was a long story, but finally we got on a plane, which almost took us 20 hours to get there. And we did stop in Japan for some fuel because it was such a long trip. But upon arrival in Vietnam, I served with the 25th Infantry in combat in Vietnam. Because I was drafted, they allow you to have an R&R and a leave. And so I took my R&R over there and went to Hong Kong. The government did supply planes to take us there. It was no cost. And for my leave, I went to Bangkok. I served my full year in Vietnam. I was wounded, so I did spend a month in a rehab facility over in Vietnam, and then went back out into the combat area. Upon arrival back here after my year of service in Vietnam, the Army decided I should become an instructor or a teacher for combat infantry training. So they sent me to class. I spent 2 weeks there, and they gave me a certificate to be an instructor, a teacher for infantry training. Now, back then, we were in a building. We had about 160 to 180 students in our class. It was a long building. And they were quite attentive, but just a point, they actually had people walking on the side of the building, and they had a stick, and they put a feather at the end of that stick. And that was used to wake up any of the students that fell asleep. And from there, I was discharged. That was in Fort Dix, and I was discharged from there, and I served, well, I was in the reserve for another 4 years, which ended my duty.
Hi, I'm George Murphy. I married a lady from Millbury about 15 years ago, so I've been in Millbury 15 years. But I grew up in the South Shore. I went to college before I went in the Army, and you heard them talk about the draft. I got the good part of the lottery, okay? I had a high number, and I didn't have to go in. But after 2 years of putzing around after I got out of college, I looked for other career opportunities, and that time they had the volunteer army, and I joined up, and I got into the intelligence field. And basically, it was good duty. They sent me to Monterey, California to learn the German language, and then from there I was posted to Germany. Now, back after Vietnam, we had what we called the Cold War, and basically it was the Russians basically ruled half of Europe, and then the other half was NATO, which is an organization with the U.S. leading it, but Canada, England, Germany, and a whole bunch of smaller countries, and Italy and Greece. And so basically I got stationed to the German border, and what that was is basically from the north of Germany all the way to the Czechoslovakia. They had a fence that was built to basically keep people in the east from immigrating to the west. And if you stepped on the fence, you'd either get hit by a mine or you get shot by a guard. And so I was able to see that firsthand, and left an impression on me. After that, the Army thought I was too smart to be just an intelligence guy. They sent me to OCS, Officer Candidate School, and I get stationed at Fort Hood, and I basically became a tactical intelligence officer, and I get to work with the M1 tank. I didn't get to command one, but I was able to support them in the field. And from there, I got out of active duty, and I joined the Army Reserve. And that was kind of a good time too, because we had a mission to go to Iceland, and I get to see Iceland a couple of times. So that's pretty much my military career, and I'll give it over to the combat Marine.
I hope, can you hear me? Okay. My name's John Land. I grew up at Cambridge and Salford Street at the bottom of Holy Cross, and they used to let us walk through Holy Cross every now and then, so we could all say we attended Holy Cross. I went to high school at Salt High. I did not like high school. I was a great athlete. I was the city weightlifting champ, the New England weightlifting champ, but I didn't want to do that. So I ended up quitting high school and that, and I ended up working in a shoe shop making shoes, brown shoe. And I had a 58 Ford convertible full of beautiful girls, and one lunchtime I just decided to go down to the post office. I was not drafted. I went down to join the Marines. I wanted to be a Marine because my brother was a Marine, my uncle was a Marine, blah, blah, blah. So then I joined the Marines, and I was an infantryman all the time through the Marines. I went to every kind of school, guerrilla warfare school, jungle warfare school, mines, dynamite, you name it, I was well trained. And I was in Vietnam in 1965. We were the first ones in the north from Chulai to the DNZ. And I was there till 67, then I was, 66, I was there. Then I came home, and I was the head enlisted man at Quantico, Virginia. I did take my GED test. I did pass that test. I did get my high school diploma. I did go to college for 2 years. I got my diploma from that. Started my own business. Been 40 years in business, and my children are now doing that. And I sell wire for power brushes all over the world. So I had a good career, and I'm lucky to be back here because, again, I was in combat a lot, and people forget that all the people that didn't come back. 13,019 Marines died in Vietnam. So I was one of the lucky ones, never got in a mess. So that's it. Lydia here? Lydia? No? I was supposed to say hi to her for my granddaughter. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, do any of the students have questions that they'd like to ask? If you think of any, by all means, raise your hand. You even get the mic, which I know nobody's happy with. I do have one question, because as teachers, we all see students leave here, they graduate, they enlist, they join the military, and all of us will say when they come back, they're changed. There's something that's different. Ernie and I were talking before this whole thing started that, you leave a boy, you come back a man kind of thing. And I just want to open the question to all of you. What was the biggest change that the military, what was the biggest change that happened to you because of the military? Biggest lesson learned, anything like that? And if all of you or some of you want to take a shot at that one, go ahead.
Respect. They taught me how to respect and to listen to other people. You're not the smartest person in the world. And like, there's no saying, when I was 15, I thought my mom and dad were the dumbest people in the world. Now that I'm 21, I'm shocked how smart they've gotten over those short amount of time. But no, the first thing I learned in the service was respect. And you carry that the rest of your life. And the honor the country, you don't know how much you love this country till you go to service.
Responsibility. That's one thing I learned. When I was, well, your age, I didn't really realize how easy my life was. Like, I thought, my parents are bearing down on me all the time. They're thinking about, like, why are they always on my case? Why are they always trying to get me to do this? Why are they always trying to get me to do that? And going over there to Iraq, coming back, I didn't realize how easy my life actually was. Like, I didn't realize that I didn't have a lot of things that I had to do, like doing the dishes, whatever, like mowing the lawn, like getting a job. I didn't think that any of it was really that important, but after seeing what I've seen and coming back to, this country, I learned that there's a lot more that I have to take responsibility for. I have to pay attention to the world around me and figure out what exactly there is that I need to do to make it better. So that's one thing that I learned.
I think I learned a very important lesson doing something that I didn't expect that I was going to be doing. I was a good student. I thought I knew a lot. And what I found out is I knew very little. Because now my world was opening up to experiences that I would never have thought possible. I met people from all over this country that I had never had the opportunity to be able to do by joining the military. People from the South, from the Midwest, from the West, people who had experiences that I had no idea about. I could have read about it, but people had different ways of thinking, different ways of doing things, different cultures. By going to Vietnam, I learned, about other ways of doing things. My students invited me to their homes. I was eating food that I didn't have the opportunity to eat. I was learning and learning so much more. When Stuart was talking about going to R&R, I too went to Hong Kong. I got to see people there and their culture. I got to go to Australia. I got to meet, different types of people, and I've done that since then. I've been to over 25 countries. I've had such opportunities, but those kinds of things really were started because of my experience in the military, which was not something I was expecting to do, not something that I had thought was even going to happen. I think it made me a better person. It made me someone who was more open to others, more tolerant of others, more able to see, others in a different way. So totally unexpected results, I think, happened whereas I thought I was, knew a lot, I found out that I really didn't know very much. So a little Millbury boy who who thought he knew a lot because he read a lot and was a book person, found out that he didn't know really very much. His world opened up to be a lot more inviting and learned a lot more.
Another question.
have any other questions? I noticed Moran's class had some questions. Do you want the mic, or do you have a loud voice?
What challenges did they encounter in Vietnam War?
For the Vietnam.
The challenges,
Sorry, in case you guys
encountered
didn't
in
hear that,
Vietnam War.
what challenges were encountered
Challenges,
in
yeah.
Vietnam?
Well, I was well trained. Trained for war. Even though there's no war, you train. Nothing I couldn't shoot or run or do because I was well trained. So the challenges in Vietnam were, again, to find the enemy because they know where you were. But you didn't know where they were. But the challenges really became when they started rotating people, because you no longer knew you. It was somebody new came in. You don't, even though he's a Marine and you knew he went to training, but you didn't know him. You didn't even know his name. And you kept rotating people. The other challenge was taking command of those people and making sure they did their job. Very commanding. And of course, I was in a lot of combat, so that matured me. But I was not a mature person. The service made me mature, disciplined, all that kind of stuff. That was good for me for later in life.
Any other Vietnam vets?
The challenges I met in Vietnam basically were combat related. When we traveled, of course we traveled by helicopter. There was no vehicles available. And we had to learn basically how to try to stay alive. We had to live a different type of life. We lived on the ground and slept there. If we went out on maneuvers in the evening, at night, we had a poncho that kept us warm, even raining, laying on the ground with the rain. We had a poncho, which was very necessary because even though Vietnam was very warm at night, it was cool. Because of the situation, we only carried what we wanted to carry, and that was ammunition and weapons. I can remember we had one set of clothing. Being hot, sweating. I was over there when it was usually they had a monsoon season. Well, when I was over there, they didn't. Every day was like a hot day, the hottest day we have here. And we had no way to take showers. So about every month, they'd bring us into the main base for a shower. In other words, we weren't able to shower for three or 4 weeks. And we had to learn our food was in a can, except they would bring out a full breakfast, and we had a full meal at night. But basically, you lived a different kind of life while you were there.
Sleep deprivation was big time. You didn't get a lot of sleep because there wasn't enough people to man the post to do everything. So you got 2 hours of sleep, 2 hours awake, 2 hours sleep, 2 hours awake. And the average dress code for a combat veteran, combat soldier, you had a helmet, you had a flight jacket, which was supposed to be bulletproof, but I never seen one that was. You had belt suspender straps. I had 10 magazines loaded with ammunition. I had 1,000 rounds of ammo in my backpack. 2 canteens, 2 grenades, a Willie Pete around, a flare, jungle boots, what I finally got after 6 months because the rats ate the other ones. But a lot of challenges, lots of challenges, and the heat, like he said, but in the mountains it was cold.
Other questions? Any other?
You know, I've heard the word respect. If you look in the back of the room here, you've got 7 or 8 teachers that are preparing you when you graduate from high school to become successful, okay? So give those teachers a lot of respect, okay? That's all I want to add. Thank you.
I definitely want to expand upon, even though the question was geared towards the Vietnam vets, the challenges that were in Vietnam, naturally I wasn't there, but the challenges that they've all experienced were really no different for people that served in the GWAT generation, like Brian and myself, especially the early days of Iraq and Afghanistan, where you're working with locals, you're in villages, you're dealing with helicopters for support, especially in the mountains of Afghanistan. In Iraq was more convoy driven, so you're dealing with resupply issues for food, water, ammunition, everything. The environment, you're constantly battling that. While we didn't have the humidity and the monsoon season to deal with in Iraq and Afghanistan, you're dealing with elevation, you're dealing with extreme heat temperatures. I saw a face, balking at the idea of going 3-4 weeks without a shower. I think my limit was out 6 or 7 weeks in the early days of the Iraq invasion. I'm sure a lot of the vets can also agree with me that improvisation, it plays a part. So if you need something, you don't have it available, you have to make do with what you have. We took a giant, essentially like an air conditioning, box that you'd find on the roof of a building. We would fill that with water so it would heat up during the day, and then we had a fire hose coming off it, so when we could shower, we would just use that. We took ponchos and kind of made a wall around it. So the challenges that were from one war are really not all that different from the next war. A few minor little nuances, but challenges are the challenges, and that's why it was harped on about the whole training aspect. You're trained to deal with that and to move on, complete the mission.
I just want to thank all you guys for sitting here, listening to a bunch of old geezers, boring you to death. But just remember, it's because of people like us old guys that you are here. You have the right to be here. You are free to be here. And thank you for being here this much.
All right, hello? Do you have something to say? Oh, you said. Last question, I'll just have a little fun. Most veterans are very loyal to the branch of service that they were in. I still can't get over last weekend. I don't know how the Army football team beat Air Force, but they did. Anyways,
Army beat the Air
if you
Force.
could
He's
serve
in the
in
first
any
guy.
other branch, which branch would it be?
Marines.
They have no brains.
Any takers on that one? If you could serve in another branch, if you had to serve.
He said Marines, but
I wish I
that strange thing happened to me the other day.
I only wish I could have
I was
sworn
in the Air
more.
Force, and the Marine
So
said
I
to me,
could have been on recon.
"What you want to be in the Air Force for?" He said,
Elite.
"If I get shot, I just fall down.
Hey, I did
You
it.
get shot, you're gonna fall out the air first before you find out if you're dead or not."
Marvin was Force Recon?
Besides, they better than
Get
us.
in, I could have
Yeah.
No takers on that, huh?
up to that.
I would probably go Air Force.
Air Force?
Yeah, I even know before I went in, I did my due diligence and met with all the recruiters. I was so headstrong on being an Army Ranger that I was just
Guys, that wasn't
so hyper-focused on just doing that I didn't really do my due diligence. And the Air Force offers a great special operation force opportunity, so probably would have gone down that track.
And I'm standing up because, I'd like to get in that new, what do they call that new cyberspace place?
Space Force?
What?
Space Force.
Space Force, because I've been in all of them. Except for the Coast Guard, so I mean, that would be the one I'd go for. I've tried them all, I love them all.
that's what I mean. I asked if anybody would serve in another branch. We only had a couple takers. See, they're loyal to the branch. Nobody wants to move.
The only thing,
Oh, go ahead.
the only thing I'd like to say, if some of you are thinking about the military, try the guard or the reserve. You can always be a reservist or a guardsman 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks out of the year.
3.
3 now? All right, but once you're active duty, that's it. You can't say, I want to be a reservist. When you're a reservist, you want to go active duty, you can go active duty. And years ago, the reservists never got called up. When I got out of active duty Marine Corps, I went Marine Corps Reserve down Plantation in Worcester. The Marine Corps Reserve wasn't really called up since the Korean War. All that's changed. One of my older VFW magazines, the large portion of IVAC was fought with National Guardsmen and reserves versus active duty. So it's something to think about. I enjoyed being in the service. I can remember one time I was down at VFW, 46 years old, looking at the VFW, Veterans of Foreign War. I said, well, that's one club I'll never be able to join. And I ended up going over to Iraq at 49. I came home at 50, now I'm 66.
You're old.
That's all I got to say.
Guys, if there's no other questions, if we could give a huge round of applause to our vets.
To vote when you turn old enough. Vote, vote, vote.
Yeah, vote Trump.
Got that right.
Vote. Power to pen.
All right, so guys, as we finish, it is now, is it C block now? It is C block now. Get there.